Hey, well, um, yeah, as he said, I'm uh, I'm David. Been doing organics since before organic was cool, but it's been a little bit of it's been a long journey. Sometimes when you're the pioneer and doing the first one, you got some trail to break. But you know what? Everything starts with the first step, and every day is a new day, and we can move forward from that. My story starts a little bit when I was just basically a baby. I was uh, I was born well when I was just 8 or 9 months old. I developed a very severe illness that the doctors didn't know what to do with. They told my parents that I would probably die. This was not something they knew how to deal with. Maybe I could live on inhalers and stuff for a while. My earliest memories in life are laying on the couch trying to get my next breath. Not really uh, something that I'd wish on anyone. But it started a journey because my parents were not okay with just, hey, they'll die pretty soon as being the verdict. So they started looking at other options and other opportunities, and they got into natural medicine and health concept. So it took a few years, but by the time I was about 6 years old, I was completely normal. Well, I was a little runty, but other than that, I was pretty much a normal child. And but it was all 100% through diet. And my diet I have to be extremely careful, even to this day. Don't have a lot of leeway. I can't try any of the junk food that most people can get away with once in a while. I have to be 100% of a purist. So and not too long after that, my granddad also, who had heart disease, and he couldn't even get on a tractor. He'd take nitroglycerin and all this stuff, and so he changed his diet as well. After I got well, they figured, well, maybe this will work for granddad. And so he changed his diet and started eating garlic and some stuff, and a couple years later, he was completely well. He was back on the tractor again, 18 hours a day, no problem, when he was in his 70s. And he actually worked so long that he eventually got killed in a tractor accident on the farm in his mid-70s, still working 18-hour days. So he was, and 20 years earlier, he couldn't even work. So we were sold on the idea that does work, it makes a difference, and it can heal us. So that's a little bit, that's kind of the backstory. So here, one of my guys put together a PowerPoint here. Let's see if this thing actually works. So the story of Azure Standard. When health became a thing, and we realized that it really worked, then Dad got to looking at his farming practices. And we do farm 4,000 acres now, but we didn't back then. It was a lot less than that. And in Ohio, that's a big farm. In Oregon, 4,000 acres is on the small side. That's a pretty small farm. So Dad actually got to looking, whoa, what is this stuff I'm putting on the soil? One day he was seeding. I think this was in 1972. He was planting, and he saw this red stuff that he was putting on the seed, and said, oh, that's almost, he looked up what it was, and it was almost pure mercury. I was like, oh, well, am I really going to put this in my soil and in my body? And he's spreading it around the grain drills up to his armpits in it, and it's like, oh, yeah, there's something wrong with this picture. So he switched to organic farming just right then and there. He never used another chemical on the place from that day forward. Never happened. So So forward a few years later, we had started farming organically. The markets were tough. We had lost we were a one market company, farm. We had one customer. And we lost that customer. And guess what? We had no customers. It was zero. So, how many people do one market for your farm? Yeah. Anyway, so now I was young and stupid at the time. Figured, hey, there's somebody was buying this stuff. Let me see if I can find them. So I started trying to market the food, and hence Azure Standard was born. A little bit by accident, but one piece at a time. So here is a picture of the Dufur Valley. This is our farm is just at the upper end of the Dufur Valley. This is in north central Oregon, and here is, we call this our generational family. I have a much bigger family than this, by the way, but this is the 4 generations that live on the farm right now. My parents, my dad, who started farming organically 50 years ago, and my wife and I, my son and his wife, and 2 of the children. And, we're in this thing for the long term. This is not, we've been, as far as I know, never anybody in my family, going backwards has ever not been a farmer. So, or at least a small farmer of some sort. So we're in this thing for the long term, and that's part of what Azure is we're here long term. We want to make a difference. We're not here to create a company that's worth a bunch of money and sell it out to the highest bidder in a few years. I want this to go forward generationally, and just as the farm has. This is not, and I can't tell you how many people have done that, how many brands that you've seen in the marketplace that sold out to Hain Foods or Celestial or General Mills or somebody that actually were good brands to begin with. And that, it's an issue. So, starting farming, this is farming back, about 50 years ago. And this is what that looks like in Oregon. We don't have a lot of rain like you guys have here, so we don't have any rain in the summertime usually. So started trying to learn. I never finished high school, and so I had to learn bookwork and different things the hard way by doing it one piece at a time. And there's more, we started doing other things besides wheat and cattle, which was the beginning. This is a squash patch here. And this was one of the ways we got the young people and the children involved, was through these kinds of processes. It's very important that we move forward with that. There's nothing more important, as you move forward on whatever the venture is that you're involved with, than making sure that you have good relationships in that, whether it's the children, the family, the neighbors, the greater family. So this is actually, that pedal pusher was actually Azure's first delivery vehicle. It's a little Chevy Love pickup with a custom box. So we, hey, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And when we started delivering grain and flour, that was the first delivery vehicle. I used to run a loop around to Seattle and Portland and then to Eugene and back. I don't know if any of you guys, this is Ohio, nobody knows the Northwest, but this is So eventually we get into a real warehouse. So this was our warehouse that we finally built, actually our third warehouse. And we began to carry a lot of other people's products. Because the demand was there. There was an extreme food desert, so to speak, in many of the Central Oregon and Washington areas, a little bit away. And people were just knocking down our door for me to get products to them, healthy stuff that, you can always go buy junk at any convenience store. But if you want real food, that's a little different process. So one thing at a time. But the main thing here was that how do you go from a farmer to becoming a national food distributor? And it looks like, hey, isn't it a little scary? I get asked that all the time. Isn't it a little scary to take on the big guys? Isn't it, what's going to happen? Are they after you? Well, I don't know, maybe. I don't really care, truthfully. But we're given, and our whole culture is given this idea that we ought to be afraid. We ought to be afraid to go up against the big guys. We ought to be afraid to get out of our comfort zone. We ought to be afraid to do anything. After all, isn't our personal safety the most important thing? And our financial safety? Isn't that the important thing? Isn't it always? Guys. Or is purpose first? Let me tell you, if we don't, and what we're doing ahead of our personal safety, we're, oh, okay. If we don't believe that our purpose and what we're doing, if we can't make a difference, if I don't know all these other folks that may have children that may not be able to make it if they don't change their diets, or themselves. We have huge amounts of folks that need product directly off the farms that is healthy and straightforward because, autoimmune disease, how much is there? That can stop, guys. We don't have to have that. That's directly related to diet. And but if we're afraid to make those changes, everyone tells us to be afraid. After all, didn't we just have a couple of years of nothing but fear? Hey, are you afraid to go out without a mask? Are you afraid to go out and visit your grandma? Are you afraid to do this and that? Heck, yeah. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Heck no. Let's just, man, No. It's about living our life with purpose. And if our purpose isn't greater than our fears, then we have the wrong purpose. But, there are folks that believe in that safety piece, and especially if you get out of your lane. So what are farmers supposed to do, Supposed to grow stuff, farm, and sell it down to the elevator or someplace like that, or at the sale yard. Isn't that what you guys are supposed to do, all you farmers? Yeah, you're supposed to do that. And if you get out of your lane, then all of a sudden you have all kinds of people not understanding what you do. So once you get out of your lane, go try to get a bank loan. Hey, see how that works out for you. Try to apply for a permit with the local government agency. See how that works out. Oh yeah, they'll eventually give it to you 3 years later, maybe, after you know, after you file a suit against them or something. But they don't understand. They expect you to be in your lane. And the lane for a farmer is supposed to be growing commodities. You know, they don't care about the quality. You know, really, a true farmer is the guardian of the nation's health. It's his job. It's all of our jobs if we grow things and grow food, plants, animals, whatever it is. It's our job to grow a quality product that will nourish the people that eat it and give them life and health and vibrancy. Because after all, health begets health and strength begets strength. And if we live in a sphere of being weak and helpless, we stay weak and helpless. If we live dominant and strong, we only get stronger. And I don't know, maybe that's sacrilegious to say that, but it's true. You'll see, the strong get stronger and the weak get weaker. And it's that way in the natural world. After all, you know, in the natural world in our country, you know, when the deer start getting weak, the coyotes get them. Before they're weak, you know, they're fine. And that, you know, that weeds out the weak. So only the strong have the babies for the next generation of deer. That's kind of the way that works. And it's the same in our lives. If we portray strength and dominance, and we go outside of our lane, and we create innovation. Now, at Azure, we innovated in some very unique ways. You know, normally, you don't integrate into national distribution from a farm. That's considered to be, you know, definitely outside of the lane. But when I realized that national distribution, the system that is in place to this day for the most part, is very controlling. They control the entire marketplace. So there's two major natural foods distributors in the country. There's Unify and Kihi, right? And I don't know but back here I think it's exactly the same. I think they're the only two major players in the health food space. You know, there's some in the grocery space and in some of the specialty spaces, but in the natural food space, they're the only players. So if you want to play, you have to go up and play nice with those guys. And I'll guarantee you, won't play nice with you, because it's not in their best interest to do that. They'd much rather play with the major companies of the world. And but you know, what if we do have a good idea? What if you do have a great idea on your farm of doing the next thing, the next innovative thing? It doesn't have to be normal. You know, we don't have to, you know, Azure sends trucks all over the country. I got told over and over again that's impossible. You can't send them more than one day's drive, or, you know, it becomes completely impractical to distribute trucking. Well, we distribute out of one warehouse in the whole nation, and it's very practical. But we had to be innovative to do that. We had to create a system where, you know, our trucks stay on the road, and they stay where they're at, and we send what we call shuttles to refill those trucks. So the drivers, they don't even go, they're not even one day from the warehouse. Some of the drivers, I mean, most of them we've flown out one time, but most of them never see the warehouse. You know, some of them never have. They've never been on the farm or at the warehouse, because they're staying wherever they're delivering. And as they move around the country, they get one truck empty, the next truck's there to refill them. And that happens over and over again. Sometimes they do 3 in a week of deliveries. So we had to come up with an innovative way to do that. Otherwise, yeah, it does become difficult. But by doing the shuttles, then we also have an empty truck, so we have great backhauls, or sometimes we even use common carriers and don't have to backhaul at all. It's there, So we can do that in a cost-effective way by creating a very efficient delivery method. So that was one of the innovations that we've done at Azure. Now we've done quite a few other things too. We've built a carob factory, and we've built packaging, and and we've built quite a process in our warehouse to be able to pick individual items instead of just cases. But these things are the innovations that anybody has to do as you grow. And I'm not saying that everybody will understand, and you don't have to stay in the lane. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing, or what somebody else did, or what somebody else said works, because they've tried it and it worked for them. So no, innovate, figure out as you're moving forward, whether it's a small homestead or a large one, it doesn't really make any difference. If you're going to make a living off the land in any way, you're going to have to innovate, unless you're one of those commercial farmers that farms thousands of acres conventionally, because that's the economics of today's agriculture. So here's a few other things. This is my brother and a bunch of his family. So there's a bunch of us that are on the farm in our family, and they're doing seed corn here. There's a seed. We found out that the seed supply was tough. It was being threatened, and Berlin Seed here, they have some really cool stuff, but the farmers that can actually grow seed are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer, and it's being consolidated into a few hands. So we said, hey, well, there'll be a few things. We'll get involved in this, and we'll save at least our section of stuff. So Azure now has a whole section of garden seeds, and they're doing an experimental patch here. A lot of our stuff, we have about 50 hoop houses, the 32 by 96 hoop houses, and about 20 of them we have dedicated to seed production, because it's really nice in seeds because they are changed. This is a little bit of an old picture, but this is the warehouse inside part of it. So as you can see, the innovation, we actually run little carts down the road with printers and batteries and everything on it. I don't think anybody else does that as far as I'm aware, but there's one there right behind the guy sitting at the desk. And so because we pick so much individual stuff that we have to rebox. But occasionally adversity happens here. Our warehouse burned down. This was our original warehouse. This just happened a little over a year ago. We lost everything in it, including my office and most of my paperwork. And so what do you do when adversity strikes? We don't know what caused it. We probably never will. There's no way to know. But a lot of food companies burned down last year, and we were one of them. And in this building, we had our fruit packing, our liquid repackaging, and our carob factory. And this happened I get a call at about 11:30 at night, and our warehouse is on fire. And so by the time we get over there, it's kind of pretty much too late to do anything about it. And so we had a couple hours of grieving, but you know what? At 6 o'clock the next morning, we had to be back at it. Adversity, don't wallow in it. It's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen. It happened to us. It's not the only time, but this This one's obvious. Everything's gone here. Roughly 3 of our primary processes, everything's gone. Now, our main stock was not gone. That was in a different warehouse. So we were able to continue to fill orders, at least a certain portion of them. We never had to shut down. But my kids were like, what do we do? I said, well, tomorrow we were we were doing plants at the time. So tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, we do plants like usual, guys. This isn't the end. This is just a step in what happens next. So a few months later, we're working on the shell. It is completely up now, but this is the shell. These are 4 of my nephews, a couple of their kids. My nephews got at it, and they got the building up in within about 9 months of the fire. The building was back up in the same place. Not all the equipment is in, but most of it is. We have all the Carob factory is done, actually a much bigger capacity than before, and it's keeping moving forward. So, moving forward with Azure, here our model is to get healthy food to families at an affordable price, especially those that cook at home. Food ingredients is our specialty. We love to offer ingredients. We contract with hundreds of farmers around the country and around the world, actually, to pull their crops. We do a lot of processing on our place, and we offer that directly to all folks anywhere around the country, almost the entire country. So this is the front of our website, and then more and more items we have created with our label on them. Now these particular items are private labeled to our spec. We don't actually can. We have a cannery in Idaho that does this for us, but to our spec, which is nice. But we do a lot of things. We have our own flour mill. We have a lot of our repackaging things. But more and more product, it's harder and harder to find stuff that's at the right spec. So we're at doing it according to our own spec. So we can control that. Here's many of the categories that we do on with Azure. We have created more and more there in this Azure Life. There's tons of recipes that the whole community shares for healthy products, and then articles and videos and different things on all of that. So sharing information amongst the team and amongst the greater Azure family has been really an awesome thing. And here's a little map showing kind of where all of the different stops that we do on the different routes are located. So pretty much we cover the entire country, including Alaska and Hawaii if there's anyone from those states. They don't have it on the map here, but we have them there as well. So from and there's kind of the backside of the farm. We sit and look at that mountain all the time. But as we move forward, let's just remember, if we expand on our successes, we only limit ourselves by our mindset. How big or how small is our mind? What can we move forward with? Does it take some kind of a superhero to make a difference? Or does it take a lot of hard work and sweat? Truthfully, it's more the latter. Much more. It's about sticking to what you believe in. Sticking to the purpose that you've been given. It doesn't take, it doesn't take some kind of genius. It doesn't take special education. None of those things really matter when it gets right down to it. What matters most is your purpose real? Is your purpose important, at least to you? Is it important to others? Is it serving your greater community? Is it serving your customers? Is it creating a service that your customers feel like can make a difference in their lives? So as you're going through and setting up, your farms or your businesses, and I'm not saying that, anybody needs to do the same model that I do. It's a hard one. I'll grant you that. But truthfully, I love working with small growers, create products, create community. That can be done today through social media. When I started, there was no such thing. We had to do it through paper, and we still have paper catalogs, but we did it through paper. We did it through word of mouth, different ways. But today we have, there's social media communities, which we use those things, and if we all give 100% to what we're doing, you know what? It changes the country and it changes the world. Everyone complains about big corporate America taking advantage of the folks. You know why they take advantage of folks? Because you spend money with them. It's pretty simple. But if you have the products and you are able to take the place of what they offer, if those of us that believe in ethical business and community, supply the products, you know what? We take all the power away from the big companies that don't have the ethics that we believe in. Because most of the world doesn't care where their products come from. They just go for the best value. Sorry, that's reality. A few of us do. A few of us pay attention. But the vast majority do not. And you know what? It changes us. So if we have a purpose and we live for that purpose, and whether that's economic, whether it's a part of our farm, whether if it's our families, and I tell you, it'll change us, it'll change our families. If we have a purpose that includes our families, that pulls our families together, it's not divisive. Not that everyone will have the exact same purpose, but we can include a lot there. But in closing, just remember that purpose, if we know what our purpose is, and we are creating a quality product or experience or service, that we are changing the world in our own way. And we keep the ethics there. I tell my team every single week, I meet with my leadership, and I tell them every single week, you know what? We can grow as large as we want to grow. We want to take Azure to a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm fine with that. But let's never lose our soul and never lose our ethics. And you know what? If we can do that, unified as those of us that produce from the land, it will change the country in a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Give it up to him one more time. He came all the way from Oregon.